All right, so thing number one is YouTube video, which we're going to record on this so you guys can go back and see it if you need to. The other thing we're doing is I'm got a bunch of people that are going to be in here. Abby and Sam, go ahead and turn on your monitors and we'll kind of figure out how we're going to do this. So that's thing number two. Thing number three is that I'm actually going to go over some of the stuff with virtual business taxes, which I haven't really made some significant changes to your stuff yet. So I'm about to do that, but we are going to talk about taxes today, and we're going to use the VBC stuff to kind of help us out in order to do that. Oof, this is looking like a rough crowd already. I know Friday afternoon is not exactly where you want to do the taxes thing, but I'm going to try to do my best to try to keep you guys informed and entertained with this. So I guess first thing I got to do is find the right place to go to for virtual business. Oy. Trust me, this gets better. All right. I go to the virtual business website and yes. No. Nope. Today's the talking about taxes day because I want to get this thing kind of rolling so we can get you guys done with it. So the idea that I had for today was that I was going to go to your class, which I'm going to right now, and I'm going to go into the course settings, and I'm going to change some stuff around in your course settings. So first of all, I am going to get rid of your quizzes. There we go. Quizzes are gone. Don't worry, they'll come back. So we're not doing any quizzes. The other thing too is that I'm allowing you to do your assignments in order. Change it. Come on, where is that stupid thing? You know, I've already done this twice today. You'd think I'd be better at it. There we go. All right, so now we can complete anything in any order, and the math and reading quizzes are gone. So this should allow everybody in class to go directly to the accounting sim, no matter where you are. So that's what we're going to do in just a little bit. We are going to walk through I said accounting, but the taxes sim all together. We did this first hour, didn't go real well. It was kind of confusing. We did this third hour and it went a lot better. So I think I'm kind of getting this, but you guys are just going to have to try to stay mentally engaged into this thing, which I get it is probably not at the top of your priority list today, but we're going to try this out anyway. So now that it's assigned, what I want to do is go to assignments, and actually the reading is right here for paying your taxes, which is going to be one of the moderately complicated things that we're going to do. So mistake number one that I found out this morning when I was teaching this was I was going and using kind of the VBC reading thing as a guide. I don't think that actually works all that well just because it tends to get a little bit confusing and kind of bogs everybody down with vocab and stuff like that. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to just tell you guys about my experiences with paying taxes and just kind of what the general gist of it all is. So here's the long and short of it. When you get a job, you have to pay taxes. And those taxes go out really before you even get your paycheck. So if you make $1,000 at your job, the paycheck that you get, you know, looks a lot like $750 when it shows up. You have about $250 that just went out the door to taxes and you never even saw it. Now, where does that tax money go? Well, you're paying into a couple of different things. So FICA, Federal Insurance Contributions Act, Social Security, Medicare, those are all things that you guys are paying for with your hard-earned money. This would be things like we talked about Social Security before, paying for old people. You're giving money to the federal government for the federal government to operate. You know, what do they use taxes for? And there's actually kind of a nice breakdown on here of what government used for your taxes. Now, the federal government puts it into Social Security and National Defense and Medicare and other non-defense type things, Medicaid. So that's where your money goes federally. There's also a state tax that you guys are paying. That's why your paycheck, you know, you lose about a quarter of it to go to state taxes also. That would be for the state of Wisconsin for stuff like roads, education, street light, police, fire department, all sorts of other services. So that's where your tax money goes. You don't even really get a say in how the government gets it, except for when you vote. That's about it. So that's the whole thing of just basically what taxes does. Other than your work tax, they raise money from property taxes too. So sales tax, property tax, your income tax from working. Those are kind of ways that governments support themselves. So that's where your money goes. Now, when you get a job, usually the first thing they have you do is come in and fill out a whole bunch of stuff and write down on the paper a bunch of things you might not understand, like deductions and stuff like that. So when you go into when you go in to sign up for your job, you can decide how much money the government is going to take out. They kind of give you some opportunities to say, don't take out as much as they do for some other people. The most the government can take out is if you claim zero single. So which basically means no exemptions at all. You're a single person. They are going to tax you the most they possibly can. I'm going to tell you why that's kind of a good thing. I'll get to that in a second. Now, if you're somebody that, let's say you have children and you have dependents and you don't want to pay all that much in taxes, you want as much of your paycheck as you can get, you can sign up for exemptions. You will get taxed less on your paychecks. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing. However, it's something that I have never done. I have always wanted to get taxed as much as possible. The reason for that is at the end of the year, so you worked from January 1st to December 31st, at the end of the year, you basically have to settle up with the government and figure out, okay, how much did I actually pay in taxes this year? The government's going to set a number of this is how much you should have paid for who you are, how much you claim, and everything that you do. This number is what you should have paid. So over the course of the year, did you pay above that number or did you pay below that number? That's what doing your taxes is. Doing your taxes is trying to figure out, did I pay enough or did I not pay enough? So here's where we go back to that zero single thing. I have claimed zero single since I was 16 years old and working at Perkins. I have always claimed myself on my taxes to have no dependents, and I'm a single person. I want them to tax me as much as possible. Now, this is totally 100% my own personal belief. There are other ways to do this that some ways that people feel are better. I'm just giving you my side of the story. I claim zero single on my taxes because I want the government to tax me as much as possible because I do not want to have to pay the government anymore when we have that whole settling up thing. So I never want to, do my taxes and figure out, okay, it's the end of the tax year and need to figure out all my stuff and, oh, shoot, I owe the government $2,000. I don't want that. I don't want a surprise bill of having to pay the government additional money. Even like $100 seems like irritating to me and I don't even want to bother, let alone, and I've had a friend who had to pay thousands of dollars to the government because he just didn't claim enough on his paychecks. So I never want to be in that position. So my wife claims zero single, I claim zero single. We get taxed the highest amount that we can because that pretty much guarantees us at the end of the year, we've paid way too much to the government and we get money back from them. That's called a tax refund. So the refund is kind of nice because if you go through the entire year, you figure out you paid too much to the government, you get money back. If you get $5,000 back from the government that shows up in like March or April, that's kind of awesome. So, I mean, one year we basically paid for our pool because of our tax return money. So it was kind of nice. We paid too much into taxes, we get money back. We've always wanted to be in that boat of we paid too much and we're going to get money coming back. We've started to kind of count on springtime. We're going to get a large check from the government because we paid too much in taxes. There's some other people that would say that this is ridiculous and stupid and you shouldn't give the government any more money than you can. And they're not wrong. So I don't want, though, to live right on that edge of do I have to pay the government or not. Some people have said, take that money you would have paid the government and put it into some kind of an investment, and then you can pay your taxes out of that. Totally true, probably more cost effective, but this is more about me just wanting to sleep better at night. And so I don't ever have to worry about owing the government tax money. So that's the reason kind of why I do that. Like I said, I think there's probably some other financial reasons of why people it would be better to do less taxes, but I don't want to get into it. So here's the thing that gets a little bit tricky about this. they're going to tell you about a bunch of forms. The forms have numbers like 1040s, W-2s, 1099-Ns. There's a bunch of terrible forms on it. We're going to fill one of them out today and just kind of try to keep this as simple as we can. But essentially what you're doing at the end of the year is you're going to report to the government, this is how much money I made. This is how much you taxed me. This is how much I'm supposed to pay. And at the end, it's like a math equation of, did you pay too much? Did you not pay enough? That's really all this is. So the form itself that we're going to fill out looks gross and intimidating, and it looks just absolutely terrible. But honestly, it's really not much more than a bunch of addition and subtraction problems. It's kind of all it is all the way down. So I guess the other couple of things I just want to go over real quick here is how and when do I pay my taxes? The weird thing about taxes is the year has to be over before you can pay them. So you can't pay your taxes on 2020 until 2021. When you have a job and your employer has registered you with the government, your employer has to get you what's called your W-2 forms within the first 2 to 3 weeks. I don't know what the number actually is. I thought it was 2 weeks. Within the first 2 to 3 weeks of the new year, your employer has to give you a form that basically says, this is how much you made in 2020, and this is how much you got taxed. So with that form, I keep forgetting to show you my own W-2s because I have them from the school district. When you have that form, then you can do your taxes. Now, obviously, as you get older, that gets a little bit more complicated because it's not just my taxes, it's my wife's taxes, it's childcare credits and stuff like that. So you got to collect a bunch of paperwork in order to do this. The thing that's kind of nice, though, is that online technologies have made this ridiculously easier. The stuff that you're going to do for virtual business is significantly harder than actually doing your taxes. So you're doing this at like the hardest point of your life as far as taxes. It all gets easier from here on out. So you have to have your taxes done by April 15th in a normal year. Actually, this year they extended it into May because of COVID. So that's kind of this year's a little bit weird. But normally April 15th is always tax day. So if you get your stuff in January, mid-January, you're basically free to do it whenever you want, January, February, March, until April. So those 3 months, you got to do your taxes at some point. It doesn't actually take all that long, and I highly recommend doing them as quickly as possible. If you get your taxes done in like February, mid-February, you're going to get your tax return a lot faster. It only takes like a week to a week and a half for you to get your tax return. And when you do your taxes, you're doing them for both state and federal at exactly the same time. It's not really all that different. And if you go through like TurboTax and some of that stuff, it's all put together in one thing. If I was teaching taxes 30 years ago, it would be much more complicated. That's actually why a lot of teachers never taught it. It's just because it's really, really difficult. It's really not anymore. TurboTax is pretty simple. It's just how much did you make and how much should you make? And so pretty easy stuff. Now, if you don't pay your taxes, you are going to get a fine. So I got to throw this part out here. Please don't cheat on your taxes, as far as what you claim, because the IRS will fine you and then you'll wind up paying more. Some other good questions on here, though, would be, should I do my own taxes? I can't speak for everybody in here. I used to own a small business. And when I had the small business, we actually got an accountant to do our taxes for us because accountants are pretty good at finding ways that you can get deductions off your taxes. And if you have a small business, that really helps. The government actually wants your business to do well. So you have a lot of tax breaks if you're a small business owner. Ever since we shut the business down, we've kind of done our taxes all on our own. Accountants are expensive, but if you have something big enough in order to necessitate an accountant, they're worth it. But then again, if you start doing your taxes at age 22, you're probably not going to need an accountant. It's going to be pretty easy because, likely only have a couple of jobs and maybe student loans or something like that to talk about. So will you get a tax refund? Well, we're going to figure out that part right now. And what we're going to do is I want you guys to open up your VBC stuff, and it's going to look something similar to this when you go there. All right. Jaden, I'm going to pick on you today. If you wouldn't mind, could you display your screen up to there? And I'm going to have you kind of be the driver on this thing, and I'm going to give you the answers as we go through this. Okay, so we're going to go through this one by one and kind of give everybody the answers. So it's really going to be beneficial for you to stay with the group on this one and fill everything out. So go ahead and go to Run Sim. So don't venture too far ahead because you could kind of get into the deep end of the pool and you don't want to do that. Plus, we found out during third hour that there's a little trick to the end of submitting it. And if you do it wrong, you may have to redo the whole thing. So I didn't even know that was there, but some people found it. So don't go too far ahead until I tell you. Okay, so on part number one here, Jaden, if you wouldn't mind, could you zoom in just a little bit to the top left-hand corner? I think you got to use the pinchers. So we can see your step 1 out of 10 thing here. So this simulation is set to turbo speed. Your person's going to jump around a little bit, but your goal is in this lesson is to fill out a 1040 federal tax form and collect your refund. So it's the last day of December. You've got an apartment, checking account, savings account. You've been working 2 jobs. You have plenty of food, and your electric bills automatically be paid. So you don't need to worry about anything else. So step 1, we're almost done. Go ahead and scroll to the bottom, and you can hit next. All right. Step 2. Click on Reports, then Messages, and open the Message Center. All the way down here, Messages. There you go. Nothing in there. You can zoom out a little bit. So go ahead and go run to, and you're going to run to January 1st. Right there, just one day. All right, now I think you're going to want to go to Messages and open that back up again. There you go. All right, Robert, what showed up?
Your tax information for last year has arrived. You now have the information needed to prepare your tax return.
Very good. Go ahead and hit close on that. So your tax information has arrived. So the first question, go ahead and scroll over to the left here a little bit. There you go. Your tax information has arrived is the correct answer. Go ahead and click next. Perfect. Now, step 3, click Reports, Pay and Tax Records. All right. This is where it's going to start to be a little bit confusing. So your pay and tax records, when this window pops up, there's a couple of tabs up here. Pay stubs, W-2s, 1099s. The pay stubs tab is kind of not worth anything in here, so really don't worry about it. So click on W-2s. Your W-2s is the form that basically tells you how much you made last year and how much you paid in taxes. Now, if it says no records are available, remember that this is technically in 2028, so you got to look back at last year. And there are your W-2s. Now, with the W-2s, really the only things we need to focus on, I know it gets a little bit confusing with the stuff that's up here, but this first box says how much you made. The second box is how much you paid in taxes. Those are really the 2 important ones. Now, what's going to get confusing about this, though, is this person in this sim has 2 jobs. So you have to report both incomes. If you take 2 fingers and just swipe to, I don't know if it's the left or the right, but it's actually click right on here. And go left or right with 2 fingers and come on. There we go. There's actually 2 W-2s in there. So you worked at Donna's Restaurant. I don't even remember what the other one is. So Donna's Restaurant, you made $16,320 and you paid, I think, $1,100 in taxes. I can't quite see that one. Okay, so from Amanda's Restaurant then, what are your wages and federal tax withheld? So click on Amanda's. So what are your wages? Briley, what'd you get for that one?
For which one?
For Amanda's restaurant.
2,800.
Yep. And so for the answer to that question, over on this side, so you made $2,878 working for that person, and you paid nothing in taxes, which is not necessarily uncommon in the restaurant industry. So those of you who work for tips know that taxes works a little bit different when it comes to that whole thing. All right. On to the next one. We're on step 4 already. So on step 4 in the pay and tax records forms, scroll horizontally, you can view Donna's restaurant. Let's do the same thing for Donna's. How much did you make? How much did you pay in taxes?
Wait, how do you go see that? Donna's restaurant?
Kind of like a soft 2 fingers, you scroll to the side.
I'm doing that. It's not doing that.
Oh, you gotta be soft with it, a little tricky.
Oh, it was the other way.
Trust me, this is why we're doing this together, because there's a whole bunch of those little pitfalls in this thing that kind of get people. Skylar, what'd you get for this one?
$16,000.
Yep.
And the tax was $1,131.
Nice job. All right, let's give a thumbs up to the person sitting next to you or somebody else in the room. We're halfway done. We're almost there. All right, click on the 1099s tab. This is any interest you would have to pay tax on. So if you made interest on a savings account or something like that, this is where it would be. It's possible you might have interest on some other investments and stuff like that, but it's additional income. Remember, the government is looking for every single cent that you made because they're going to tax you on it. So how much do we make on here?
$24.70.
Perfect. We're almost done. We're on to step 6. All right, on step 6, click Actions and Taxes to begin filling out your 1040. All right, take a break for just a second and stop looking at that gruesome thing and look at me for just a moment. So this horrible thing is very intimidating. Please don't be intimidated by it. So a couple of things about it. First of all, anything from here up, you don't have to worry about for this. And in real life, this would be just stuff like putting in your name, the date, your social security number, any of that other stuff. So it looks really intimidating. It's not. As far as all of this stuff down the side that you're going to fill out, it's really just basic math down the side. So you just kind of have to know what exactly it's looking for. All right. So we're going to take this a little bit slow, but it says add up the amounts in box 1 of your 2 W-2s, round the answer to the nearest dollar, and enter that on line 1. So let's go back to your W-2s. Perfect. Oh, no, that's 1099s. Let's go to those W-2s. So they want to know what's in this box. Box number 1, how much is in both of them? You're going to have to add those 2 together. Callie, you want to share the answer when you have it? Oh, did you add already? What is it?
Isn't it 19,000?
Yeah.
It's 198.
19,199 because you're rounding up. So this is going to be kind of the frustrating thing for a few people. I don't know why they did this, but they don't want any decimals, no dollar signs, nothing. So when you go back to your form here on number 1, Jaden, go ahead and put in 19,199. That's exactly how they want it. So if you have any commas, dollar signs, decimal points, any of that other stuff, they're not going to let you submit it at the end of this. So you're just writing in whatever that dollar happens to be. All right. Now, the next thing you have to do after you've done this in box number 1, box number 2, enter the amount on box 1 of your 1099 int and put it on line 2B. So the tab right here for the 1099s,
Sorry, I forget you're talking.
that's okay. So box number 1 right there, the interest that you made off your savings account, put that in 2B. Remember to round up. Nope, you don't even need to do that. 25. We're not doing any decimal signs, no cents, no nothing. Once again, this is why we're doing this all together, because this would be kind of a nightmare for people to try to figure out on their own. All right, so 25 is the number that should be in there. So the next thing you're going to do then is add lines 1B and 2B and put the result on line 6. So line 6 down here is you're just adding 1 plus 2, basically what's in the boxes, and putting it into line 6. Now this other stuff that's in here, basically they're putting together all of your wages and salary, anything else that you made from taxes, but any of these other boxes in 3, 4, or 5 would be additional incomes that you might have made, any other investments that you made money on. You know, if you made money in Social Security, if you got a Social Security check, you'd put that in here. They left it blank because this person doesn't have any of that stuff. So you're just going to skip over it, and now you got your total in there of $19,224, and you can answer that right here. Perfect. Hit next. On to step 7. Step 7, enter $12,200 on line 8 of the 1040. 12,200. Very good. Now, let's take another break for a second. Why did we do this? Well, basically, can you zoom in on this just a little bit? I gotta stop saying basically. I'm having a bit of a problem with that today.
On what?
On line 8.
Gotcha.
Just a little bit so we can read it a bit better. So standard deduction or itemized deductions. Now, that's really close. Cool. That works. No, that's perfect. So this is how much money that you made, right? The government is going to give you a deduction. You get to reduce the amount of income that's going to be taxable because of this, because of where you are, how much money you make. This is what you get. Now, the more money that you make, and I'll talk about this in just a few minutes, the more money you make, the more you're going to be taxed. So this person is only making like $20,000. So there's not a lot of tax they're actually going to wind up paying. So that's why you get this number. The government is saying, all right, you know, you have this much, you're going to take off 12,200. And so that's how we wound up with this number right here. Of your income that you made, the government gets to tax that much of it. And again, when you do your taxes for real, if you're on TurboTax and stuff like that, this is pretty much exactly how they did it. Nope, no negative.
That's what I thought, but why does it say, it says subtract 8 from 7?
Yep, lines 8 and 9 from 7. So start with 7 and then just subtract. You have the right number. Leaving it just like that. Yes. Yes, you can. You can catch the video and finish your taxes. Okay. So, Jaden, what I'd like you to do now, and this part's going to be kind of important also for everybody else. See this thing right here in the tax table? Go ahead and click on that. So we know now that this person has $7,000 of taxable income. This is where the government steps in and says, okay, where do you fit on our scale of taxable income? Well, if I'm looking at our tax bracket, this person, their taxable income is between $0 and $9,700. That's our person, right? So, Callie, how much does that person have to pay in taxes then?
0 to 10%.
Well, 0 plus 10%. This is, and again, this is where it's a little bit tricky. So this first thing is a flat number that you would have to pay in taxes. This person that we are working with doesn't have to pay the flat number, but they got to pay the percentage. So that number of, what was it, $7,024? They have to pay 10% of that. So if we go back to our sheet over here, that's how much they're going to wind up paying in taxes. Is $702. And I think you put that on line 11, right? $702? Perfect. Now, before we do anything else though, guys, just take a break for a second. So click on tax table again. So the real tax table, it was that link right in the middle. Tax table. So the real tax table, can you zoom in just a little bit more on it? The real tax table is like totally complicated. It's like a huge spreadsheet, and you can see how much money that you make, how much you have to pay in taxes. So that's generally how that goes. Let me ask you guys a question though. So let's say theoretically you are this person in this tax bracket and you make $84,000 a year. You're just under that. Let's say your employer says, you know what, you've been doing awesome at your job. We're going to give you an extra $1,000 a year. So they go from $84,000, where they were paying $4,000 in taxes, to $85,000, which puts them in another tax bracket, and they have to pay $14,000 in taxes. Did they just lose a bunch of money because they got a raise? Yeah, that's a real thing. So this is definitely a VBC kind of extreme on that. I mean, I don't think that there's a jump where the down payment you have to make is thousands of dollars more. It's much more incremental. But for sure, there's a possibility that you could get a raise at your job that puts you in a higher tax bracket, which means you got to pay more taxes, which totally defeats the purpose of the raise. That absolutely can happen. And I can tell you that personally, my wife and I, as we have grown through our careers, she started as a teacher, went to associate principal, and she's a building principal now. And I was a substitute teacher. Now I'm a teacher with 10 years of experience. And I got my master's degree. Like, our pay scales have gone up and up and up. As that's happened, our tax returns have gone down. So the money we've gotten back, because we're making more money every year, we get less back from the government. I mean, that's the trade-off of making more money, is that you're going to pay more in taxes. So it is very, very real and very, very possible that you could make more money and then get into a higher tax bracket and actually wind up with less money actually winding up in your hand. Now, as far as what you can do about that, I'm sure there's people out there that know exactly the tax code and know when they're going to get those raises. That stuff happens. I don't watch it that closely. Generally, if we say we're going to get paid more at work, we take the money. If we get put into a higher tax bracket, then that's what we get. We did play this game a little bit this year, though, because we didn't submit our taxes right away. Usually we're pretty early filers for our taxes, and we waited because of COVID relief checks. Because the COVID relief checks were based off of people's 2019 income. If you submitted your taxes, then the relief checks would be based off your 2020 income, which for my wife and I was higher than our 2019. So we actually delayed in doing our taxes so they would take the 2019 number and we could actually get a stimulus check. So that really happened. But were you laughing at me?
No.
Oh, I'm sorry. Masks. So
No, I was not.
some people are more on top of that stuff. We've noticed that we've done our taxes one year and like, well, shoot, our refund, we're going to get $2,000 less this year because we made more money. So this is an extreme example of that, but that absolutely happens. As you make more money, you pay more in taxes. Do you want to turn down raises at work? I don't think you do, but it's a thing. Okay, so let's go back to the sheet here. So where are we at? Do we do number 7? I don't know if we put in
We're
the.
still on number 7.
I don't think we put in the final number on number 7. So number 7, your taxable income is $7,024, right there. All right, on to the next one. Step 8. We're almost there. We got 2 more steps to go. So in this sim, we've included a quick link to the tax table, which we just looked at. The tax table on line 11.8 says figure out your tax based on the amount. So what do we wind up paying for this? $702. Go ahead and put it in there. Make sure you have it down here on line. I think that's 15, right?
Yep.
Number 6?
Yeah, 7,024.
19,224. The actual number 6, not line 6.
Wait, no. You didn't need allowance. That didn't mean
Is it the same answer for both?
Hmm.
What was 7? I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Oh, okay. Never mind.
You guys got it?
Yeah.
All right. So this person owes the government $702. We figured that out now. That's what their taxable income is, 10% of that number. So they were supposed to pay the government $702. Now we figure out if they actually did or not. So in step number 9, it says, assume line 17 is 0. Line 18 has been autofilled for you. You need to subtract the amount on line 15 from the amount on line 18.
Line 18 is 0.
What's that?
Line 18 is 0.
Should be autofilled.
It's 0.
I missed something somewhere.
No.
Hang on just a second. Let me.
Line 16.
Yeah, line 16.
Where is line?
That's why it's not.
Good question. Where is line 16? Did we miss? We missed a step. Hang on.
Back it up.
I think
Line
16 was supposed to autofill.
Enter this on line 16.
Oh, of the 1040. That's back on step 7.
Yeah, when we have to add your 2 and your 2.
Yep. Round the answer to the nearest dollar. Yep. So on line 16, sorry, that was my bad. That should be 1,132. Yeah. So line 16 is how much did you actually wind up paying? We know from one of their jobs, they didn't pay anything. So then the other tax on the other one was 1,132. And 1,132, because that's what's on the W-2s. So this person owes the government $702, and they paid the government $1,132. So what happens then? Refund. We get a tax refund. So you get a tax refund, and that's the question on number 9. How much do you get? Well, if you paid $1,132 and you were supposed to pay $702, then what's that number? $430. All right, and I think on that final line on line 22, I don't think you have to put anything in there.
Nope, it says you are getting a refund and you don't have to fill on 22.
Correct. Okay, everybody stop for a second. So this is where we've lost some people here right at the finish line. So you're done. Click on File Tax Return way in the bottom. No, actually, there were 2 people in Latin third hour that got audited by the IRS and had to pay like $1,000 fine and had to redo the whole thing again. So I have no idea how they did that. So that's kind of my plan, is to try to avoid that. All right, you have filed your tax return. Now, what it wants you to do is go to Next. It says, click File Tax Return, run the sim for several months. So go to May 1st. Wait till she's done, though, before you guys do this. So sim ahead to May 1st. Is it already on there? Cool. Go to your messages. So reports, messages. All right. A check has arrived from the IRS. It is on your desk. Use your bank's ATM to deposit it. I don't even think you need to go to your desk. So close this message down. Your bank is this one. So there's a bunch of people that went to the wrong bank. And if you go to use ATM, deposit checks, click on the checkbox there and deposit. If you go to the wrong bank, you can't finish the sim. So there was
I'm done.
some problems.
Me first.
Use ATM.
No, you don't even have to.
Hang on. There's one more thing. So once you've reached this screen, we've got one last thing we need to do. Did you get it?
Yeah.
All right, what I want you to do is go to Review Sim. Hit close. And, yep, just hit OK and then back. Oh, I'm sorry. Reports. We should have done this before. I did this backwards, but if you go to Reports, you go to Past Tax Returns. So this is the tax return you guys just did, right? Screenshot this. Because this is going to go directly into your portfolio because they're going to ask you, like, can you prove that you know how to fill out a tax form? Yes, there it is. That's my tax form. So screenshot this thing. So now everybody should have the evidence they need to pass the tax thing on the final. So it's all right here and everything that you need for it.
That's it.
That's it.
We're done.
Now I'm just going to turn the quizzes back on and you guys can take those at your leisure.
So there's past tax returns and past
Oh,
Oh.
go ahead.
Is it for like?
I don't know. I'm on 91%, so I think I'll be all right.